everyone, welcome to the show. My name is Amanda Ostrander. I am a teacher-turned-homeschool mom, and this is Raising A to Z. It is a place all about homeschooling, and today you're in for a treat. You get to come and plan a whole homeschool year with me. This is arguably one of my most popular videos that I do every single year. It is my Plan With Me video. I'm so excited to show you what and how I plan a whole homeschool year. I've got all my supplies. I've got some pens and pencils. I got some sticky notes, and I have, probably the most important thing, my homeschool planner. So this is the Essential Homeschool Planner. It is a planner that I designed. They're exactly what you need if you're a homeschool parent looking for something to help keep you on track. So this is what I'm going to be using today. I have the Essential Homeschool Planner. I'm going to be using the academic version, which means that this runs from August 2023 all the way to the end of July 2024. So this is kind of like your academic North American school year calendar type style. But by popular request, I also have the Essentials Homeschool Planner. It is exactly the same, except for it comes in an undated version. This is brand new this year, where you can get it completely undated, so you can start this whenever you want. It is available in 6 different covers. There's different covers for the dated and undated. And it is just like it's a great resource to have because it really does help you stay organized, stay on top of things, and helps you plan out a really great homeschooling year. So if you want to purchase one, they are available either completely printed and bound, just like this. You can find them on Amazon. I'll put a link down below. Or if you prefer to have one that you print yourself, like a PDF, there's also a link down below for the PDF version, both undated and academic year. So let's get started. I'm going to be using the academic year because it's dated, and I live in North America, where we kind of follow an academic year. So that's what I'm going to use. I'm going to use the Essential Homeschool Planner 2023-2024, and this is going to be the foundation for my homeschooling planning. So while I'm doing this, I might as well walk you through it. Start off with our year at glance. I always put this in because it just makes life so much easier. So the first thing that comes in as soon as you get past your kind of year at a glance is planning review. I think having a moment to kind of sit down and think about what worked well last year, what didn't work well, and how we can address it is key when it comes to planning out your next homeschooling year. If you're just planning things just for planning's sake, and you're not taking into account the things that worked and that didn't work, and how you might change and try to make your homeschooling plan a little bit better, then what's the point of planning, right? So what's the point of putting all the work in if you're not going to try to make things better? So we got to sit down. We got to talk about what worked last year, what didn't, what we're adding in, what we're taking out, what we're changing. So let's start with what worked last year. And because we're doing my life, I'm actually going to write down what worked last year. So I'm going to use it. It's my favorite color, blue pen. So that's what we're going to use. So what worked last year? Okay. So one thing that worked really well for us was, again, we always find the unit studies work really well. So unit studies with a printed PDF as a spine. This has been something that we did for the first time this past year. In years past, I think my kids were young enough that it was very easy for me to just make up the unit study as we went on the fly. And it was great. It was easy. But this year, now that Alexi is a little bit older and Zoe's a little bit older, I was finding that it was taking me a lot of energy to constantly be coming up with a full unit study. So this year I made an effort to find PDFs or printable unit studies or things like that I could use kind of as a spine and then just expand from there rather than creating unit studies from scratch every single month. And that has been a game changer for us. Because sometimes there were topics where there was no unit studies available. I couldn't find anything. And then I had the creative energy to actually build those unit studies when I needed them. But for things that were super common and super popular, finding printed PDFs and things that that were already made, and I could just print them off and, pay $2, $3, $4, $5 for them, or sometimes even a little bit more. It really made homeschooling a lot easier, especially when it came to the unit studies, because I didn't have to, like I said, make everything from scratch. Another thing that I really loved about this year was we had lots of socialization. We had lots of socialization this year. I think it was kind of, for me, this felt like the first year post-pandemic where things were semi-normal. And it was nice to see how many things were available for homeschoolers and to be able to take advantage of all those things. And so we got to do a lot of socialization this year. And I think it was kind of cool to watch, especially like Zoe has friends, but like especially Alexi, who's a little bit older, really start to bond with the kids that we saw regularly and really start to make a lot of like really strong friendships. It was super, super cool. So definitely want to make sure that we are keeping up the socialization and that we are taking advantage of all the classes that we can without burning out. So those are things that I thought worked really well. Things that didn't work well and things that I need to consider addressing for next year. This schedule again was overscheduled. I think especially at the beginning of the year, I was a little too gung-ho and too excited about all the options that were available this year because things were open and everything was available. And we might have bit off a little bit more than we could chew, being really honest. Like there were days where I was like, I have not been home in 14 days, like just been at home for the whole day in 14 days, 15 days. Like we had something every single day. October was particularly bad. I think it was just a combination that like here in Canada, we have Thanksgiving and Halloween so close together so that it really emphasized how much we had going on when you had all of our activities plus like the sporadic like Halloween party or like a Thanksgiving dinner or something like that. It really showed us how maybe I bit off a few more classes than I was ready for. So I think something that I'm going to be looking for is making sure to protect at least 1, maybe even 2 days a week that are like strictly home days. I always have tried to do that, but I think that's going to be a real focus this year coming up is like watching the scheduling and not just signing up for classes because they sound amazing, which sucks, but you know what I mean? Yeah, it's necessary, right? It's a necessary thing. So another thing that did not work this year and that I've noticed over the past probably 2 years, and I thought maybe the first year was a fluke, so I didn't think about it last year, but being really, really honest, I had way too many units. And so basically like I planned 1 unit a month from September till June, with Christmas being off, like we don't do an extra unit in Christmas. And I realized that it's too much. It's too much because it never gave us the time to be sick or to take a break. So sometimes like, for example, March, once we did like spring break and then we had like a week before we were sick, by the time we got through March, I think we did like realistically, we got like 1 solid week on a unit study and it just felt like we were rushing through it just to get through it. And so consciously this year, I'm actually going to try to cut back the number of unit studies that we do just so that we have a little bit more breathing room so that I'm not feeling rushed to get things done just to get them done. When in reality, we should be able to take those breaks and take some time if we're sick, especially in like February. Like, I don't know why I'm planning tons of units in February. We're always sick. So it's just life. So too many units, we're going to cut back and give space. So what to add in? I always think that we want to add things in. Sometimes you've just had more time, more experience, and you're ready to add something new. So what am I going to add in this year? I'm not adding a ton because I feel like we have a really good balance of schoolwork and socialization and all of that. What I am going to add, I'm going to add one thing. And that is that this year we're going to be doing the Jot It Down program. So basically it is a Brave Writer program where kids have the ability every month, basically there's 10 projects throughout the year. You can pick which one you want to do every month. And it walks you through how to create each of these pieces of writing. And they're designed for kids ages 5 to like 7 or 8. And how to create them with your children, how to make projects that are exciting and that are actually like very like normal types of writing. So there's everything from like writing lists to writing letters to writing stories, making posters, planning parties. Like there's different things that involve writing that we don't always think about, but that kids find very exciting. And so my plan to add this year is 1 day a week doing the jotted down program and bringing in some of those writing elements and having like a writing day. So that's my plan. That's the one thing I'm adding this year. I'm not adding anything else. As much as I like would love to, I have to be realistic. We're adding just one thing. And what I'm taking out, my goal, like I said, when I was talking about what didn't work, is I'm taking out the number of units. So we're going to do 8 units this year. So we're going to be doing 8 units this year instead of the 9 or 10 that we've done in the past. And that's, I'm hoping, will kind of give me that little bit of breather. Also, something that we're doing that's different is I'm doing a bit of a different schedule. So it's going to be a little bit different. So we're going to be incorporating a kind of like a weekly schedule in terms of some of the units. I don't think this is something I would recommend for most people. It's just going to work very differently for us this year because of one of the units that we're going to do. And I'm going to explain that when I get a little closer. So this is my planning review. This is what I've been thinking about. This is how I'm going to be implementing these going forward. And this is what I'm hopefully going to help us have an even better homeschool year. So that's my planning. So then as we go through the planner, we're coming to our long-term planning. So this is where I'm going to start figuring out what I'm going to be doing and where. So when I do this, I'm going to show you kind of my final version, but when I do this before this, because it does take some time and sometimes you do have to move things around, I use sticky notes. And so what I'll do is I'll do things like, I will write the topics, my topics, I'll just show you. I'll do like rocks and minerals, and we're doing a birds unit, music unit, mushrooms. Okay, so for example, I will take my sticky notes and I will kind of start moving them around and putting them over top as I'm figuring out where to put things. And then it just gives me like, without writing down, having to erase and write, erase or write, I can kind of like move things around easily. And then I'm like, oh, you know what? This would actually be way better in this month. And this would go better here. Like I can make those adjustments. And then once I've kind of figured out what I'm happy with, then I can go back and start adding more details. But this is just like a really easy way to figure out where you want to put things without like having to commit to it in paper and pen and using your planner until you're like happy with it. Very easy way to do it. Works really well. When it comes to our long-term planning, this is how I'm going to do. This is what we're doing. If you want to see like a full list of like unit studies and the curriculum, I'll put a links up here for what we're doing next year. This is what I've decided to do for the 2023-2024 homeschool year for us. So September, we're starting off right away because I find September, we really get into like big topics really quickly. We're going to do Indigenous people. And one of the reasons I want to kind of pick a bit, not even that it's a heavier topic, but maybe something a little bit deeper for September, because I find September, things are still picking up. So oftentimes we have extra days available because, you know, gymnastics class doesn't start until the end of the month. Choir doesn't start till the end of the month. So we have a little bit more time in September, whereas like we're in our school schedule, but not everything has quite started up yet. And so I find I actually get a lot done. And because it's a new year, I have a lot of energy. The kids have a lot of energy. And so we kind of really dive into things like that really well. We did Ancient Egypt this year and we were able to do so much in 1 month. So that's why I'm picking kind of a bigger topic, something that is like a little bit more expansive. And so that's what we're going to do for September is Indigenous people. This is kind of like Indigenous peoples and their groups pre-contact. And so I'm very excited about that. I found a really cool unit study and I think that's gonna be a lot of fun. So that's gonna be my plan for all of September. Then October comes and we're going to start the month with mushrooms. Mushrooms and fungi. This topic came because my kids wanted to learn about plants again, this would have been the third year that we have studied plants. And I have nothing against botany. Let me make that very clear. I love gardening just as much as the next person. But I can only talk about photosynthesis so many times before I start to lose my mind. So I tried to pick something, we tried to come up with something that was maybe a little bit like plant adjacent, and we came up with mushrooms and fungi. I'm super excited because we're gonna be able to do things like growing mushrooms. You get mushroom growing kits, which will be really fun. I think it's gonna be a lot of fun to do that. And so we're gonna do that for like 3 weeks. Normally, I do a solid month. I find that works really well. But this year, one of the topics that Zoe wanted to learn about, and it's kind of something that I love learning about because I'm a history major and historian, and I love that, is I love learning about the history of holidays. And so that is something that we're doing is 1 week before several different holidays throughout the year. For the week before, we're going to be learning all about the history of that. So before Halloween, we're going to do 1 week of the history of Halloween. Okay. And so that'll be 1 week, and then we're going to move on. Then right after the history of Halloween, we're basically going to move straight into the history of Remembrance Day. History of Remembrance Day. So because they're so close back to back, we're going to do those right away. And I am going to give a little bit more time for Remembrance Day. I'm also giving myself a little bit of breathing room after Halloween because between trick-or-treating and trunk-or-treats and Halloween parties, we probably need a day or two to rest. So I'm realistically realizing that like we're going to do Remembrance Day and then be able to try something new. But also, even though it's like 11 days, I think it'll really be like, it ended up being about a week. Okay, after Remembrance Day, we're going to jump into rocks and minerals. The reason I picked rocks and minerals for November is because we do a science center program, and typically November, because it has our science center, Science North has 2 sites. There's like the science center, and then there's Dynamic Earth, which is like a mining and rock exploration type of exhibit. Typically we go to Dynamic Earth in November, so it's a good tie-in. So I'm hoping that works out for us. So then after rocks and minerals, we're going to go into December. We're going to do 1 week of history of Christmas. And I only do like 1 week of, I'm only doing 1 week in December. Normally we'd take the whole month off. But since that's something that Zoe wants to do, I feel like it's a really easy kind of tie-in, and it won't be too much when it comes to like the month of December, and it's gonna be something easy we can kind of like run through the month with us. So yeah, so we're gonna do the history of Christmas, and then we'll probably take a little bit of a break just because December is busy. December is so busy with Christmas concerts and plays and performances and stuff. So we'll do the history of Christmas, and then we get into things like our advent calendars and like books under the trees and stuff. So 1 week of school in December, and then I think we'll be good. Then we come back for January. January, I always want to start off really strong. So I always pick a topic that I think can be super engaging, super exciting for them, that we can do a lot of like tie-in activities with it. Also something that we can do indoors, because November is often very cold here. So something that we're quite happy to kind of curl up and just hunker down and do. So for January, we're actually going to be doing writers. So funnily enough, this was a unit that I picked not this past year, but last year. And I had this great writing unit already, and I was so excited to do it. And then we got sick and we were sick for like 3 weeks and never got to do the writers unit. We read some books about writers, but that's about it. So this time I'm actually hoping that we'll actually get to do the writers unit and write our own story and like illustrate it and do the whole thing. So that's my plan for January, to do a lot of like writers, illustrations, writing our own story, binding books, that kind of thing. So that is January. Then we move into February and March. February and March gets a little bit wonky because this is kind of where I'm giving myself some space. I'm not really planning on doing much in terms of a unit study. So what I've got is we've got 1 week of the history of Valentine's. Okay. And then in March, we have the history of St. Patrick's Day. And because of the way it falls this year, we also have the history of Easter. So because we have 3 weeks in that where we're doing the history of, I'm kind of giving myself a little bit of a buffer through February and March. So what I did instead is I have a backup. I have a novel study. So we're going to be doing a novel study that kind of, I can take all of February and March to kind of get through it while doing kind of these like sporadic weeks of, and also having spring break in there. So I'm hoping that it'll give us a lot of time to kind of get through those things without it being super intense, and give me a lot of breathing space so that if we are sick, we can just be sick and not feel like I'm planned a lot of stuff. Honestly, that's kind of the thing that irritates me about planning, is that you plan something and then you don't get to do any of the stuff you planned. This way I can plan something, I have a backup. If we don't get to it, we don't get to it. But if we are healthy and we're like trucking along, I have something that I can just pull out and work with. And if we don't do that, we can read it during the summer. Not a big deal. Right. So that's my plan for February and March, is to kind of have those 3 holiday weeks of study and have a novel study as I need it, if I need it. Then I'm hoping that by April, we are not in like the flu season anymore and we can be happy and healthy and get back to kind of our normal schedule. So April, we're doing music and musicians. This is probably going to be a unit that I end up making because of what I want to cover in that unit. I would have to buy multiple units and like splice them together, and it would get really costly. So yeah, we're going to do in April a unit that I kind of make myself. But I think it'll be fun. It'll be cool. And so then we get into May. May is going to be birds. This is a unit that Zoe is desperate to do. I don't think you understand how desperate Zoe is to do it. I would have picked it earlier in the year, except for the fact that we would like to do a hatchery program. So I have a friend who runs who rents out like egg hatching equipment. So you get like the incubator and the eggs and everything. And so she only runs it in the spring and into like June, July time. And so if I want to do it, I have to kind of do it in the spring. So that is why we're doing it then and not earlier in the year, even though I think it would have been a great unit to kind of jump into earlier. You got to do it when it makes sense time-wise too. So that's one of the nice things about planning long-term that I think a lot of people don't understand, is you can plan ahead to do those kinds of things and have it make sense. And the funny thing is my kids often are amazed how things line up. Like they think it's just like a total coincidence. Like last year I knew that we had like over spring break, we were going to be going to Toronto and that we were going to go to the aquarium, and that there was a exhibit on whales at the ROM. And so I planned that when we wanted to do an ocean unit that we would do it during that month so we could go and see the animals in the aquarium and learn about whales. Like, makes sense, right? Alexa, I'm not even kidding. Alexa looked at me one day while we were sitting in the Airbnb and she goes, "Mom, isn't it amazing that like we're learning about oceans and we're getting to see all these ocean things?" And yeah, they don't realize that it's all like planned ahead, but it does make the learning so much richer when you can like integrate things like that. So because we want to do that hatchery program, we're going to do birds in May. And then our final unit of the year is going to be bees. I have a unit on that I'm super excited about. This was very similar to the mushroom thing where the kids wanted to learn about bugs again. And we've done insects, we've done butterflies specifically. And then they want to learn about bugs again. And so I was like, why don't we pick another like singular and like dive into that? So we're going to do bees. I think it'll be a really nice tie into like our gardening at that time anyway, pollinators and that kind of stuff. So that's what we're going to do. And then for July, because we are year-long homeschoolers, we'll just be finishing up a regular curriculum. And we'll probably be doing an author study. So that's kind of my plan for July. We're going to try it out this year because I think the kids were going to like it, and then do something bigger, find like one author and read all of their works or something like that over the course of the summer. So that's my plan. This is kind of what we do long term. So some people do laugh because I am doing my planning in end of May, early June, for a year that is several months away. And one of the reasons I like to do that is because I like to take the summer off and not have to do anything. And to me, that just makes sense. I like to be able to just relax over July, especially. Like August, I start to kind of like slowly gear up into the year. But like July, I just want to chill. I have things I want to do. I want to garden. I want to be outside. We want to go swimming. We have trips planned. I just want to relax in July. And so this will give me the time that I can just like, if it's done now, I don't have to worry about it later. So now, though, is not the time that I'm going to be going through and start figuring out where my curriculum goes, because that's just too much. Now, I might do something like go into the reading list and add in some of our books. So I do have some books here. We're going to be doing Alice in Wonderland. We have How Winston Delivered Christmas. What else do I have? I have Heartwood Hotel, The Capture. Duet, and I have The Big Sting. So like I might come through here and put my reading list in. Some of these are like my big books for my units, and I might, like, I'm not going to get into my weekly time blocking yet because I don't know when things are happening for September yet. So this is the stuff I'll kind of do towards the end of August once I kind of register for things again. But it's nice to kind of start having an idea and thinking about them. I might start going through and planning out my unit studies a little bit in terms of like what we're doing. So like the topic, I definitely like to put in my big book and my project and any films. That's kind of like the three things that I really like to include. And then closer to, I'll add like the activities. So I might go through and do something like in our unit study planner where I do like the big book. If I'm feeling particularly motivated, I might go through and do my unit study planners here for each of the units and kind of fill in these kind of unit study sheets. I like these because even though I'm using like something that has a spine, has maybe some projects or whatever, I can add them in here if they already have their own projects. But it also gives me the ability to like make some bigger connections. So I always like to pick like a big book, like a novel study not even a novel study, but like a novel that's like related to the topic. Then I'm going to pick like a big project, something that we can work on over the course of a couple weeks that is connected. I like to pull in like different types of movies and TV shows, documentaries, things that we can watch and make some notes about those things. Even though I still have like the spine of what I'm doing, it kind of just makes it that I can add some personality to it. So I could go through and do that. And then really the only other thing that I would do is start to go into my months and figure out what were things that I need to think about ahead of time. So I might come in here and like start adding in, well, not August, what we're going to be doing. So we start school in September, but I made it in August because a lot of people start school in August. So in September, I might start with like our topic of the month is Indigenous people. Okay, and then I might start adding other things that we're going to be celebrating this month. So we have a whole bunch of birthdays. We have my birthday, my brother's birthday, my nephew's birthday, any holidays, anything like that, and start also adding them to the calendar so that when it comes time to get into actually planning out my month at, later in August, I already have some information, the basics things written down, things that I already know in advance, like birthdays, major holidays, especially like if we know of any trips or anything that we've already started planning out in advance, I'll put those in here. But otherwise, that is like the majority of my planning that I'm getting done now. And by doing this, I get to have an entire summer off. So that is my plan for the 2023-2024 school year. I would love to know if you guys have any exciting plans for next year. Feel free to share those down in the comment below, because I just want to know what you guys are doing. Sometimes people come up with some great ideas. And I'm a big fan of big, borrowing, and stealing. So if you come up with an idea, I might steal it for the year after. So thank you so much for watching. Make sure that you guys follow me along on Facebook, Instagram, and TikTok. And if you want to pick up your own Essential Homeschool Planner, again, I said it comes in 6 beautiful covers. It can be delivered directly to your door through Amazon. If you want to get your own, I will put a link down below where you can find them. So thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you guys next week.